So basically, during this webinar, I will explain, what is a binary or repository manager, why you would need one, and what you would gain from having one. Okay, and this webinar will be focused on the OSS version, so the free one, which is dedicated for Java development. Because we have, got other, I would say, subscriptions, but here it's going to be focused on the OSS version for Java, because we have, with the OSS version, we have Maven, Gradle, SBT, Scala, and Ivy Ant repositories. Okay, so here is a little bit about myself. So I'm Jan Chasing, solution engineer at JFrog. So I'm from the French office in Toulouse, and we have also offices in the United States, in France, where I'm based, and in Israel, and also in India as well. So the solution engineering team is responsible, for all the, I would say, technical communication. So we are doing webinars like this one, but also others on different topics. We are writing blog posts and white papers as well. And like you saw on the previous slide, we also attend conventions like the one that we talk about. So basically, for instance, I was at Devox France, I was at, and we also at DockerCon, KubeCon, Jenkins user conference, and etc. And aside of this, these events, we're also doing technical sessions with customers. So where we provide best guidance, I would say, or best practices on how to integrate our products in your pipeline or in your workflow, in your DevOps process. Okay, so let's go through the agenda for today. So basically, during the first part, I will explain, I will demonstrate to illustrate with a common pattern on how about, I would say, development life cycle workflow, and see what challenges you would be facing when growing. So in terms of, I would say, number of developers and number of binaries. Second part would be already to explain what is a repository or binary manager. That's the same. And the advantages of having one. And I will then do, a demo of Artifactory. And at the end, we'll do a Q&A session. Okay, so for this first part, so we'll be let's see what it takes actually to build your software. So basically, you will start with a development team. So you can start small with at least one developer. You will have a version control system like GitLab, GitHub, SVN, Bitbucket to store your source code. So you'll be pushing and pulling your source code. Your project will also need dependencies that you would fetch from remote repositories or far-end servers, like I prefer to call them. Like if you're, let's say that you're doing a Maven project where you'll be pulling dependencies from JCenter or Maven Central. Okay. So during this, this would be the dev phase. In parallel, and mostly you will have a CI server to make sure that what the developer has pushed doesn't break the whole, I would say, application. So it will a job will be triggered on events, on a commit, for instance, and you will do a build in the same way that you would have done on the software developer workstations. So build and then run some tests. Okay, and here it's like I said, it's the same. I would say steps. So it will pull the code from your version control system and also pull the dependencies. Okay, that's I would say the very small project. But then you will grow. Okay, your project will be, I would say, more important. So you have more features to develop, so more code, more developers. So here is what's going to happen. So it's going to be the same steps, I would say, but with more, I would say, connections. So your developers will pull the code and push as well. They will also, They will download or fetch dependency from these parent servers as well. So they will have a copy of all the necessary dependencies locally on their workstation. So you can see that you actually will have duplicates. In the same way, your CI server will fetch well, the code and also the dependencies. So here, by the way, didn't really have time to describe that you have CI servers on-prem like Jenkins, TeamCD, Bamboo, and also cloud CI servers like Travis CI or Circle CI. So here you can see that we are fetching actually a lot of binaries, from these parent servers. So locally, they will be stored locally on the CI server and on the developer workstation. And most of the time, I mean, in the company, you will also have, your version control on in-house. But here you will be relying on an external data sources. Okay. So what happens actually if you've got an issue to download these dependencies? It will break, the chain. And here, so what would you do when, for instance, you have, a new dependency which was necessary for a new feature during the dev phase? You have this outage, and then your CI server won't be able actually to fetch the new dependency. I know that you will have local caches on the software developers workstation and on your CI server, but for new dependency, well, you won't be able to reach it. The only way would be, in some ways, to get this new dependency or new dependencies, because you have more actually, and to copy it from your developer workstation to your CI server, which is not, a really, I would say, right way to do it. Also, what you'll have, when your projects are getting bigger and bigger, so you'll be relying on more dependencies. So actually, the number of dependencies and your storage will suffer about this. You have more and more binaries, so it will affect actually your developer workstation and your CI server. Okay, and you don't want at some point to reach the limit of your storage. You would like maybe to have some kind of cleanup policy or some kind of retention policy to make sure that you delete what you don't really need to. So these are I would say, the two major issues that you'd be suffering when growing. So basically, yes, this is what I'm telling you, is actually you should actually keep your binaries somewhere, safe, where you will always where they will always be accessible. Okay, so should I put them in my source control because I have one, or maybe I should store it in somewhere on a server, on a file system, like an FTP, for instance. Yes, you could do either of these choice. But actually, what you can also do is to rely, on a binary or repository manager, because that's its purpose. That's why you could actually go with Artifactory, which is a repository manager. So here, if you use a repository manager or Artifactory, you will change, I would say, the way how you're retrieving your dependency and actually how you're managing your binaries. So here you can see that now, instead of downloading the different dependencies directly from the external sources, your CI server and your developers will actually get them through Artifactory. So here your developers will use the Maven install, for instance, to connect to Artifactory, and it's going to be up to Artifactory to download to connect actually to these parent servers, like for Maven or for Maven, but could be other actually parent servers, and they will fetch them. So Artifactory will download your dependencies, keep them, will store them locally on its server, and then give them back to your developers or to a CI server. So you can see on the bottom left, so we have different repositories in Artifactory. I will explain a bit more about them in the next slide, actually. And you can also see that, well, in your haven't talked about this, but during your project, you will generate your own artifact. and then you will also be able to store them in Artifactory. And then if you have provisioning tool or deployment tool, you will connect them to Artifactory to retrieve your artifacts and deploy them to your different environments. You can see that Artifactory can be used on different stages, I would say, from dev to production. So basically, what is a repository manager or binary manager? Well, it's the place where you will store all your artifacts, like I said. You will store your own artifacts, so the one that you would have generated from your build, from your CI server. You will also store your dependencies, okay? And actually, this is where Artifactory will act as a proxy, as a cache. You can see like this. You can see like this. It's very important in the way where, for instance, you're relying, on a specific dependency that in the future, later will be, I would say, will be deleted. Here, in that case, Artifactory, once you download a specific dependency, it will stay in Artifactory. It won't be deleted by Artifactory. So if you have, a network issue, well, to reach these foreign servers, you will still be able to reach your Artifactory in-house and keep developing and building. So here you can see that I talked about Artifactory as a proxy. You can see on this diagram below, where before using Artifactory, so all the workstation will connect, directly to the foreign servers through actually using their dependency manager here, and then with Artifactory, still by using your dependency manager, you will be able to connect to them, but through Artifactory. Actually, I will show you how you can plug, for instance, your Maven client to Artifactory really, really easily. It will be during the demo. So yeah, that's it. So here you can see Artifactory is a proxy or a cache. And actually, here you can see that we are using different kind of repositories. So if I go, for instance, on the if I start by on the right, we've got remote repositories. We've got two, and actually they are they represent a link to these foreign servers. Okay, so you have one remote repository, which, for instance, will point to JCenter. A second one can point, for instance, to Maven Central. And then if you can see at the bottom, there is another one, local repository, where actually this is where you will store your own artifacts. So you would actually do a push to a local repository, and also a pull if you want to download what you've generated, and also do a pull on a remote repository. Each repository can be accessed only through a single URL, okay? And you can see that we have a virtual repository, which actually aggregates different repositories. So this means that through a single URL, so the one from the virtual repository, you will be able to fetch or resolve your dependency on different sources, so foreign servers, but also to push, well, to resolve on remote repositories and also on your own artifacts. And you will be also be able to push to your local repository. So basically, virtual repository, you'll be able, with a unique URL, you'll be able to push and to pull, which is pretty convenient. Yeah, so I will also show you in the demo that here I'm showing you that we have a developer workstation connecting to Artifactory to push and also to pull. But we also that's also the case for the CI server, for Jenkins, TeamCD, Bamboo, or any CI server. You will be able to perform push and pull. We have actually specific plugins, for instance, for Jenkins, and a universal way actually to push and pull to Artifactory, or push to and pull from Artifactory using the CLI. And yeah, so if I continue, well, with Artifactory, you will be able to really easily manage your artifacts. So I will still continue on the next slide to show you the different feature. And yes, forgot to mention something, because in the previous slide I said that, well, you could store your binaries, in your version control system or the file system. that's also doable. Okay, so before going over the different features, I will talk about this of why you shouldn't actually store your binaries into your source control system like Git or SVN. So basically, what you need really to understand, well, I'm pretty sure that all of you guys know what is a version control system. It's a place where you store your code, you manage your code. Basically, you'll be able to go back in time. If you want to do rollback, some kind of rollback, you'll be able to do it. If you want to manage your different features in different branches, you'll be able to do it. And then you'll be able to merge, specific code to get a specific to release a specific feature. Basically, you'll be your version control will be based on diff. Okay, by doing diff or diff of your code, you'll be able to go back in time or to perform merge. That's the general idea. Okay, I'm not talking about the internal mechanism on how diff, or I would say merging or storing your the different commit, the history of your code repo, because SVN, for instance, and Git are not using the same internal mechanism. But the idea here is to explain you why it's not that appropriate to store your binaries into your version control system. So basically, what is a source code? It's a text file, okay, where you can write into it and see what's its content. A binary would be more a blob. Basically, you don't really read a blob. First thing, it's a binary. Second thing, well, when we talk about text file, it's diffable. So you'll be able to perform a diff and see really what has changed. For binaries, it's not that you can't do this. You can't really see the different changes inside your binary. I'm not saying that you can't open it and see what's inside it. You can do it, but really make a diff between two binaries. Well, you can't really say what has changed. Then it's how you version your, I would say, your source code. So it's by content. Basically, when you look at two different, I would say, version or state of your source code, you'll be able to tell what has changed, and etc. So you'll be able to differentiate them by their content. For a binary, you would mostly, they differentiate them by their name, their version, or the checksum, not by their content. And then it's the way how you, well, for the source code, it's stored by override. Basically, the history would be, it's again here. It's not about the how SVN or Git are storing the history of your source code. It's more like the idea of going from a state 1 to a state 2 of your code. So basically, you will be changing codes and overriding your file. That's the general idea. Even if internally, it's done different. There is a difference between SVN and Git, for instance. For binary, well, you don't really change. When you want to switch to bump your version, you don't really change just some piece of your binary inside. You don't just change just a piece of your binary. You build from scratch. I would say almost from scratch your binary over and over. So you should never override a binary. You would create a new version with a new version. A new version number. So just want to be clear on this, on the version by content. I will just illustrate with some slides. So for instance, I've got my text file, which is my poem.txt, which has revision 1. Okay, I switch to revision 2, and here I add, I would say, the more word. I know that I've switched to another version. For revision 3, I remove the word text, and at the end, I will just have more word. Which means that here you can see that I'll be able to see the different version of my file just by looking at the content. Which basically, this is how, like I was saying, your version control will be able to perform different actions. Okay, like merging and keeping history of your source code. Which basically, this is as for a binary, that's not possible to do this diff. So you won't be able really to take, I would say, advantage of your VCS, so your version control system, that you would do with your code. Here, where you have just, a binary, and then when you have another version, you will keep another version of your binary, and etc. So basically, I mean, you can still do it. You can still store your binaries inside your version control, but clearly, it doesn't. Your VCS wasn't made for this kind of thing, especially also for huge files. Okay. So it would be like, if I had an analogy, where in your fridge you put your fridge or your butter, and if you want to prepare your meal, you wouldn't store your cutlery, your napkin in your fridge. Okay, you could do it, but it's not appropriate. That's I would say the idea. And yeah, some about Git, especially when when you're dealing with big files, having these large files inside your VCS is not a good idea. And especially also with Git, as Git is storing your history, let's say to put it really briefly, it does snapshots of your whole repo when you do a commit. So if you delete I would say binary, well, it will still stay in the history. It won't be really removed from your VCS, and your storage will still keep running, okay, until you. And yeah, and about Git LFS, if you talk about Git LFS, it does also solve these issues, some issues of having bigger and bigger objects. But actually, I would say in the principle, it doesn't change something. It's a binary. You don't manage your binary lifecycle like you would do with your code. Okay, that's the main idea. So if I get okay, I'll also talk about the file server. So instead of of listing the different points why you shouldn't do this and this, and why you should go with I would say a repository manager, well, we're going to just list the requirements. Okay, what will you expect from a tool to store your binaries and to manage your binaries? So here, well, the first thing that you would like to have is to, like I showed you during the previous slides, is to be able to proxy or cache parent servers. Okay, to have this mechanism to connect to another to a parent server, resolve the dependency, find the dependency or not binary inside this parent server, and to keep it locally and serve it to your client. Then you will also like to to perform some searches by name. As it's going to be manage your binaries. You'd like to look to perform some searches on different criteria, actually. Like you would do also for your binary, for your source code, you would like a way to manage your artifact binaries lifecycle. I also mentioned during the first slide where you'd like to also as your project will get bigger and bigger, you would like to perform some cleanup, to remove snapshots or unnecessary or unused artifact, I would say, or at least having a retention policy. You would like also to have an optimized storage, because you are bigger project, more binaries, so it will consume more storage. You'd like to have a way, to prevent your storage to explode when having bigger and bigger projects. Also, you'd like to set permissions, because you'd like to say, well, I've got these specific binaries. They are only for my team A. I don't want my team B to access these specific binaries. So we like to set permission to restrict, I would say, the access to specific binaries to a specific population. You would like maybe to have an API, if you want to perform some automations and reach, a fully automated, I would say, CI/CD process. So API would be nice to have, and etc. Okay, have maybe more requirements. So this is actually what you would need. What you would expect from a tool to manage your binaries. Well, if you already manage to do this by yourself, congrats. Well, you have your in-house binary repository, which is great. But by the way, so how long did it take you actually to implement this system. And how hard, how hard is it to maintain it and to make fixes or new features inside this tool. With Artifactory, it's all the feature or requirements that I presented you are already out of the box, which is nice actually, especially for only remember I'm talking about the OSS version, the framework. Just want also to get back to this specific point, about the storage, and then just wanted to show you how we optimize your storage size with Artifactory. So with Artifactory, when you install Artifactory, you will have out of the box a database, which is the Apache Derby database. Okay, and in this database, we will store actually all your binaries metadata. So metadata would be actually their name, the repository where they belong to, their size, and etc. Your binaries won't be stored in this database, but they will be stored by default on your file system. And they will be identified by their checksum, a SHA-1. So here you can see that we've got the Derby and the binaries themselves onto your file store, identified by a checksum generated by Artifactory. So we are separating binaries from their metadata. So why are we doing this? It's actually a way to optimize your storage, like I said. So I will explain it to you like this. So on this screenshot, you can see on the top, well, this is basically the same shot that before. So here you can see that we've got a binary, okay? So I don't know which binary it is, but it's identified by checksum. And in the database, you will have the metadata related to this binary. So in the node table, actually. And you can see that for this one, for this checksum, this SHA-1, actually this is, it belongs to the repo libs release local. It's in this specific path. And okay, it's got a name. Sorry, it was cut off from the screenshot. So basically you have all the information about your binary in the database. And actually, so why do you do this? Well, let's say that you're uploading twice the same artifact, okay, but not in the same path or same repo. So what's going to happen is, well, here we know that our binary is identified by the unique checksum. So we won't actually upload twice your binary like you would do in a regular storage solution, okay, on your file system. You will have only one binary, but different metadata, so different artifacts. An artifact will be represented by metadata. That would be the difference between a binary and an artifact. So if you have in your Artifactory different copies, okay, let's say that you're doing promotion by copying artifacts into different repositories, well, you won't have duplicates. You will have only one binary, but different metadata. That's the idea. It will prevent your storage to grow too fast if you're managing a lot of copies. We also have, a garbage collection in Artifactory. I'm not talking about the one from the JVM. It's really a process running inside Artifactory. The idea would be to, well, first, the garbage collection in Artifactory is a scheduled task. So by default, it runs every 4 hours. Okay? It's here actually to delete binaries. But like I showed you, we won't delete binaries right away that once you delete one artifact. Let's say that we have different copies of the same, different artifact pointing to the same binary. Okay, if you delete one artifact, so it will go to the trash can. The GC will run, but it won't. It will delete, the artifacts, the metadata in the database, but it won't delete the binary because it's still linked to other binaries, to other artifacts. Sorry. So once actually Artifactory will remove your binary once there is no artifact related to this specific binary. So when you don't have any metadata related to binary, it will be removed by the garbage collector. Sorry. So this is why I'm showing it's a really optimized way, to manage your binaries. having this notion of binaries and artifacts. And then, like I showed you, everything occurs in the database. So when you add an artifact, we'll upload the binary. If it doesn't exist, we'll add a metadata. If I move or copy my artifact to another repo, actually what's going to happen is I will do updates in the database. If I delete an artifact, basically I'm going to delete in the database, and then the GC will delete the binary if necessary. So everything happens in the database, and that's why nothing occurs on the file system. There is no locks, okay? Everything happens in the database. If you move, or the layout, so the path where your binary or artifact is stored, it's handled by the database, not on the file system. So we are not creating, subfolders and etc. If you move your binary, everything occurs in the database. So it's I would say much faster. And yeah, so here is a really simple, I would say, diagram showing you how you can use Artifactory. That's the same that we saw before, but we say nicer. Here you would use the Artifactory for resolutions of your dependency and to store your own artifact. With the OSS version, here you can see that you can be able to plug your Gradle, Maven, Ivy, and Scala client to Artifactory. And like I said, also we have dedicated plugins for CI servers, for Jenkins, Bamboo, and we also have the CLI, which is a universal way to push and pull artifacts from Artifactory. Yeah, so basically that's the demo time, I would say. I will show you basically, Artifactory, the integration with Jenkins, and a couple of things, how to use the API and the AQL. Okay. So this is Artifactory. I will just make sure that I'm still logged in. Okay, perfect. So I'll show you the different. Yeah, I wasn't logged in actually. Okay, we'll log in again. About the different, repository that we have. So I told you about, the different repositories, local, remote, and virtual. So they are here. You'll be able to create as many repositories as you want. So local, virtual, remote. So when you go with the OSS version, well, like I said, it's Java development focused. So you'll be able to create only this Gradle, Maven, Scala SBT, and Ivy repositories. The others actually are only for the pro version. You also have the generic one. You'll be able to create, your repositories. And if I go to one, I just wanted to show you that we have, I talk about how to, I would say, how to prevent your storage to explode. We have different ways to do it. For instance, we have ways, for a Maven repository, you'll be able to specify the number of unique snapshots. So you can say, for instance, 5, and it will keep only the 5 latest snapshots. Then you won't have, like 20 snapshots in your Artifactory of the same artifact. Also, when we talk about the remote, so we switch to remote, you have ways to have this kind of retention policy. You have the same, mechanism that you would have on the local one, and also you'll be able to specify how long. It's really up to you. Basically, out of the box, we don't put a limitation on this. You have the way for remote to specify how many hours you would like to keep the dependency. Yeah, that's a way to do some cleanups, I would say, in Artifactory out of the box. Then you have the virtual repository, which, like I said, it's a way to aggregate other repositories. So here, for instance, I have in my virtual repository one local and one remote, but I can add any other repository. And what's great also with Artifactory is that you'll be able to, I would say, change the resolution order. Okay, so here, by default, you have Artifactory will still always look into a local repository, then to a remote. So what's going to happen here, if I add two local repository, I will be able to say, well, I want to look, first in this libs integration local repository to resolve my dependency. So I'll be able to kind of speed up the resolution process. With the OSS version, you also have ways, to manage different users in terms of permissions. So you have in Artifactory internal users, but you will also be able to plug your LDAP or AD to Artifactory. Okay. So with the OSS version, you don't. It's not possible to manage the LDAP groups. Okay, that's a feature that you have to unlock with the Pro edition. But still, you'll be able to manage permissions. And then, when you have a user or groups of users, you'll be able to set permissions on specific repositories, and then apply the different rights, I would say. So manage, delete, override, deploy cache, annotate, and read. So really, you'll be able to have this fine-grained control access on your binaries. I showed you also that we have a way also for to integrate really fast, I would say, or easily with your different build tools or dependency manager. So for instance, with Maven, if I take a Maven one or other, that's going to be the same. You have this set me up function here, which will basically tell you, how you can plug to your Artifactory. So here I'm going to generate a setting.xml. Okay. With, here it's going to be replaced by my credentials here. And you'll have all the setup, all your setting.xml will be ready to hit, I would say, on Artifactory. So then you can, download it and then give it to your developers. Or you can even, deploy it to a specific repo and then give this, give this URL to this setting.xml to your developers. They will be able to download it from Artifactory. So it's a super simple way to download things, or to plug your Maven client to Artifactory. But it also works for Gradle, for Ivy, Scala, for SBT, Scala. And when you go to Artifactory, you also have, we take this one, sorry. You also have information about your package, about what you've pushed. Okay, so for instance, I will go down to this one, greetings. I have the name of my artifacts, where it's stored, the path, etc., who deployed it, the number of downloads. Okay, if I download it, for instance, here, I'll have some statistics. Okay, it's been downloaded. And if I reload, it will switch to 6. And you will also be able to see who downloaded it last. Well, if it's not an anonymous user. So and then you have other features, but they are only available on the Pro one, in the Pro version. Basically, really quickly on the properties, we'll be able to add metadata, specific custom metadata to your artifact, and then you'll be able to resolve this artifact based on this custom metadata. So you have different things, especially for Maven, if you want to be able to use this dependency inside your POM file. So this is the thing, what you can get, by using Artifactory to manage your binaries, to track them down. For instance, if you want to implement, you can create different repositories here, and you will be able to, I would say, to manage your binaries lifecycle, through different repositories. Also, what you have with Artifactory is a REST API. Okay, I'll be also, well, even if it's the OSS version, we still have ways to use the REST API to automate some actions. For instance, here, I'll be able to perform, this is a specific API. If I want to look for a specific Maven artifact, okay, based on the artifact ID, I can do it. Actually, I will do something nicer, like this. So it's all the API endpoint will return a JSON object. Here, I'm listing all the artifacts which have this ID grid. but you will be able to specify the group ID, the version, and etc. You also have ways, to get the statistics. What I showed you on the UI, you will be able to get the same result through the API. You can also do something more complex, I would say, using the AQL, the Artifactory query language. So I would say, it's like SQL, but for Artifactory. And the idea would be to build a query based on different domains. And each domain, I would say, contains different attributes. So you'd be able to say, for instance, list me, I want to list all the artifact older than 8 months, I don't know. You'll be able to hit on the item domain and make a query on the creation date. That's the idea. Here I've got different, and here are all the different domains which are related. From the build domain, I'd be able to go through the module domain and access the dependency domain and the item domain. So for instance, I will show you what you can do. Here I've got, a simple AQL query, which basically will tell me where I want to, for my build, because in Artifactory, sorry, I will show it to you in the next seconds. In Artifactory, you can store your build. Okay, the build that you would have in your. So you'll be pushing your build and also, your generated artifact. And your dependency will be there already because you would have resolved your dependency through Artifactory. We'll come to that in the next seconds. Here you can see that, I want to list actually what I want to do is to list my build, which names are Maven and build number is 6. And I want to look actually to list what I've actually pushed to Artifactory. So you can execute this AQL query using a curl command like you would do with the with the API. Here you can see that I'm using also my encrypted credentials, because in Artifactory you can manage your credentials, but also encrypted one, and also you have an API key. Difference between encrypted password and API key, well, the API key is not related to your password and it doesn't expire. That's the idea. So perfect for technical accounts, I would say. And here, sorry, this is what you can get. So I've run an AQL query to list what my build processes, my build, okay, my Maven grading job build number 6 has generated. That's just a simple example, okay, but you can actually do very cool things with the AQL. And yeah, so I also wanted to show you the integration with with Jenkins. So we have different plugins, okay. We also, so here I'm going to show you the Artifactory Jenkins plugin that you can install, on your Jenkins. It's free, and you will be able to actually push and pull your binaries using DSL pipeline, and to script your deployment with our plugins. So this is really a simple pipeline. Okay, I'm checking out the code, configuring my Artifactory, and executing my Maven build, and pushing my build and artifacts. When you've done this, you'll have this link to switch, okay, to your Artifactory. And this is the build info. So you'll be able to see, how long it took, who pushed it. Well, you can't see really you can see that we've got the 3 artifacts which were generated. So basically this is these 3 artifacts and number of dependencies as well, but you can't really get into it through the UI as it's a pro feature. Okay, we also capture environment variables to make sure that you'll be able to reproduce in the same environment. For instance, you can look, for the Java version. You will be able to filter that. Yeah, and based on this, I just wanted to show quickly the pipeline, which will actually end our demo. So this is once you've installed the Artifactory Jenkins plugin, you will be able to manipulate, I would say, Artifactory objects. So here, I've in my configuration, I already predefined my Artifactory, which is identified by this name, Artifactory OSS. I want to create a new Maven build. So with the plugin, you will have access. You'll be able to create Gradle builds as well. I'm creating a build info. I'm setting up all my config to push, to resolve from Artifactory, and to resolve and to push. Sorry. I'm saying that I want to capture the environment variables, like I showed you on the build info. And then I'm executing my Maven run, my Maven install. So I'm storing all the information into a build info object that I will push in the next step. By the way, you can also see that we have a build info retention. So you can specify how many builds you want to keep. When I say build info, it's builds in Artifactory. Okay, it's number of builds here. So if I go to this one, I've got different builds. So you can set a retention policy of your build. It won't delete your artifact, only the builds themselves. Okay. And then, so this is the Artifactory Jenkins plugin, which is really super easy to use. I really encourage you to go with it if you're doing Maven or Gradle project. And yeah, so this is going to be almost the end of my the webinar. So basically, this is I showed you, the different integration, how you can use Artifactory, as a centralized, I would say, place or tool to store your binaries, your own one, your dependencies. You will use Artifactory as a cache to speed up your builds during resolution phase. You will be able, to manage the growth of your dependencies using retention policies, like I showed you on the remote and local repo. You'll be able to automate things. Using the REST API, the AQL, even with the OSS version. But you have a free integration with different CI servers like Jenkins, Bamboo, or TeamCity. If you're using, for instance, GitLab CI, you can still use the CLI, okay, the command line interface, to be able to push your Maven or your Gradle builds. I encourage you to go to our wiki or check our blog post. We've got great blog post which explain you how to do this really easily. And you also have, using Artifactory an optimized storage solution with a checksum-based storage, you will be able to manage also your permissions. And if you really want to go further, well, you can achieve this. Is the next slide. If you enable if you go with the Pro version, you will be able to really have something even. So you will go deeper, I would say, in the automation process and see Artifactory as a system of records. And actually, that would end my webinar. So I think that we can go with the Q&A. Do we have some questions? I think that we have some. So okay, the question is, does JFrog Artifactory come into picture after Jenkins or before Jenkins? I will say both. Okay, you can use Artifactory, as I said, during your to work with your developers. So they will connect. They will resolve dependencies by connecting to Artifactory. And then you can also use Artifactory during the Jenkins build to pull dependencies and to push your generated artifact. Okay, so the second question, how can I get older version of artifact if I have only one artifact and different metadata? Well, actually, you can specify which version you would like to have. So it's not sure to understand the question, but you will still be able to get older version of artifact using, well, the command pattern. If you're using Maven, for instance, you'll be able to use the GAVC, the coordinates of your artifact. Okay. All right. So yeah. So is it only for Maven? Yeah. Well, like I showed you, well, you can. It's not only for Maven. You can use. It's for Java, I would say, developers. So we support in Artifactory OSS the Maven repo, Gradle repository, Scala repositories, and Ant.iv. And you have a generic repo to store your different any kind of binary, I would say. We also have, by the way, another edition for Conan for C and C++, which is the community edition. Last, I've got two other questions. Okay, two other questions. Still, we have time. Yeah. Okay. So, so what exactly is the difference, of using the free DOSS and the non-free? So basically, you will have, like I showed you on the previous slides, maybe it was too quick, but you have different, more repositories. So here, with DOSS, you have only, I would say, Java technologies. With the Pro, we'll have more like Docker, RPM, Debian, Ruby. Lately, we added Go repositories, the Helm charts as well, Helm repositories to manage the Helm charts for Kubernetes. We added also CRAN for our language, and so on. What you can also expect from the Pro version is to have different authentication mechanism, like for SSO. You'll also be able to import your LDAP groups, etc. You have also ways that, to replicate, to connect two Artifactory instances to share binaries, which is the replication system. And if you really want to go even more, really to have already something, I would say, in terms of architecture, stronger. If you want to be able to, for instance, to scale up your storage, to scale out many Artifact instances into a NetCheck cluster, well, you can go. You'll be able to do this with the enterprise. And yeah, and last question, last one. So what's the difference between using a generic repo and a repo dedicated to a specific technology? It really depends on your use case. So if it just, you want to store an archive, a zip file or a zip file, let's say, or a tarball, you can still, put it in a generic repo and retrieve it using the API by specifying its path. Okay, that's going to work. But then, let's say if you want to handle RPMs, for instance, the difference of putting them in a generic repo and putting them in a RPM repo, dedicated repo, is the way how you index, I would say, your packages. In the RPM repo, you've got a system to index your packages. So basically, you have different XML files with a tarball as well, and these files have to be updated when you upload new artifacts. So with Artifactory, we've got this internal mechanism which will update this indexing files to have a better experience during resolution. But I hope that answer your question. And I think that I'm good on this. So I will let now Nera end this.
Thank you, Jan, for this webinar, and thank you all for joining and for spending time with us. We hope you enjoyed this webinar, and we're sorry that we didn't get to all the questions, but we will email everyone with an answer shortly. You will also receive an email with the recording and with all the relevant links in the next few days. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you again, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thank you, everyone. Bye.